Today, we are diving headfirst into a paradox that's right at the heart of modern science. See, we are absolutely flooded with data, more than ever before in human history. But the big question is all this data a blessing or a curse? Because what's happening is that this explosion of information is creating two powerful and totally opposite stories. One is about a looming crisis, and the other is about incredible life-saving breakthroughs. And really, it all boils down to this single question. On one hand, you've got all this open data, which promises to speed up discovery like never before. But on the other hand, that same openness, well, it opens the door to misuse on an industrial scale. So what's the verdict? The answer, as you're about to see, is both. All right, so let's start with the dark side. The very thing that was designed to make science faster and more collaborative, that openness, is now being turned into a weapon. And it is creating a very real crisis of trust. And at the center of this whole mess is a pretty shadowy industry with a very specific name. Yeah, they're called paper mills, and that name is just perfect because it captures exactly what they do. These are literally factories for fake science. They turn out fraudulent papers, sometimes by the thousand, and then sell authorship credits to researchers who are desperate to get published. It's this dark little economy that's thriving on that intense pressure in academia to publish or perish. And the result is, well, it's predictable, but it's also incredibly damaging. What we're seeing is a tidal wave of junk science pouring into the system. And this doesn't just make it harder for real scientists to find genuine breakthroughs, it actively eats away at the public's trust in the entire scientific process. And this is how they're doing it. It's like a whole assembly line of deceit. These paper mills are taking huge public data sets, things like the UK Biobank, and then using AI writing tools to just mass produce these phony, formulaic papers. So what happens? Well, legitimate journals are getting totally overwhelmed trying to filter out all the fakes, and that trust in science just keeps getting chipped away. But, the scientific community is starting to fight back. The Journal of Global Health, for instance, is basically drawing a line in the sand. They're now demanding total transparency from authors, making them disclose if they used open data sets or AI. It's a really crucial first step in this battle to protect scientific integrity. But here's the thing. That is only half the story. Because for every shadow, there is a source of light. And the very same kinds of data that are being misused are also fueling some of the most profound and genuinely life-changing breakthroughs in modern medicine. So our first example comes from the Harvard Aging Brain Study. Here, researchers sifted through years and years of data, trying to find a link between a really simple, everyday activity and one of the most feared diseases of our time, Alzheimer's. And the findings were just stunning. For people who are at high risk for Alzheimer's, something as simple as a daily walk between 5,000 and 7,500 steps was linked to delaying cognitive decline by up to 7 years. 7! That's an incredible testament to the value of having long-term, carefully collected data. Okay, next up, let's look at how data is literally changing patient care inside hospital walls. A new study shows how you can combine data from wearable devices with deep learning to create a really powerful early warning system. And this system can actually predict when a patient's condition is about to get worse, up to 17 hours in advance. I mean, that is a total game changer for doctors and nurses. It shifts healthcare from just reacting to emergencies to proactively, and I mean proactively, saving lives. And finally, a huge study that came out in Nature Cardiovascular Research used data to challenge this one-size-fits-all approach to health. They looked at exercise and heart health, and what they found was that gender plays a surprisingly big role. So the data showed something fascinating. While, yes, exercise is good for everyone, no surprise there, women actually get a significantly greater protective effect against heart disease and overall risk of death. It's a perfect example of how big data can help us move towards more personalized and, frankly, more effective healthcare. So you have this really stark contrast, right? On one side, misuse and fraud. On the other, these incredible breakthroughs. So what's enabling the good side? Well, it really comes down to using a powerful and responsible set of modern tools. The modern researcher has an amazing toolkit for doing responsible science. You have platforms like Positron and Google's Data Science Agent that give AI-powered help for doing really robust analysis. Then you have tools like RedCap, which make sure that data is collected securely right from the start. And when it's time to share the results, resources like the R Graph Gallery help create the clear, transparent visuals that good science really depends on. So you can see how this all fits together into a really clear, responsible workflow. It starts with secure data collection, then it moves to rigorous analysis with help from AI, and it ends with transparent, reproducible visualizations. This kind of structured approach is the perfect antidote to the chaos and deception that comes from the paper mills. So where does all this leave us? We've seen the crisis and the breakthroughs. We've seen the bad actors and the dedicated scientists. The path forward, it seems, requires us to think beyond just the technology itself. And ultimately, this is the real core of the dilemma. The data, the AI, the platforms, they're all just tools. They can be used to build things up or to tear them down, to bring clarity or to create confusion. The responsibility for what happens, well, that rests squarely on the shoulders of the researchers who choose to use them. And that brings us to the final and I think most important question. As our tools for analyzing all this data get exponentially more powerful, how do we make sure our science gets wiser and not just smarter? Because the future of scientific progress really depends on how we answer that.